Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Justice and asks, does she stand by her statement, quote, "We need to encourage these women and children to be comfortable coming forward to report domestic and sexual violence," unquote. If so, what has she done to encourage women to report domestic violence?
Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr. Speaker, yes, the government has already achieved significant progress with improving the support for victims of domestic and sexual violence. As a result of the $50 victims offender levy, $12.6 million has been collected since July 2010. There are 15 new grants and services available to victims, including discretionary grants to support victims of sexual violence and funding for the National Sexual Violence Survivor Advocate, as well as specialist victim advisors to provide assistance for parents or caregivers who attend court to support child witnesses. As Minister of Justice, I have initiated a major work stream which is nearing completion and will include a range of further initiatives to provide better support and access to justice for victims of domestic and sexual violence.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
Will women feel encouraged to report domestic violence when they see her, the Minister of Justice, defending Maurice Williamson's interference in a police case?
Order. That question now has no connection with the primary question. I invite the member. I don't want to take supplementary questions from her. I invite her to ask a question that's in relation to the primary question.
Point of order.
Well, I can't take three at once. I won't take any. They're all sat down.
Speaker.
Jan Logie, point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My initial question was relating to encouraging women to report. My second question was whether women will feel encouraged to report based on the leadership provided by that minister. It was directly relevant.
Order. If the member simply asks that question, it'll be an order. But then when it's a reference to a resignation that's occurred, etc., that is not an order. So if the member wants to stand and ask that question she's just raised in a point of order, it may well be acceptable. Jan Logie.
Supplementary. Will women feel encouraged to report domestic violence when they see her, the Minister of Justice, providing leadership in domestic violence, supporting a minister's interference in a police case?
Order. I gave the member one more chance. She was on the right track to the last part. I will give her only one order. I will give her one more opportunity. Otherwise, we will move to the next question. Point of order, Grant Robertson.
Mr. Speaker, I'd ask you to reflect on that ruling that you've just made. The question from Jan Logie is a broad statement around domestic and sexual violence. She's asked a question of the Minister. I can't understand why her referencing a matter that is in the public arena rules the question out of order.
Well, it's
completely in order.
The member may not understand it, but I invite the member to look very carefully at standing orders. Supplement 384. The member needs it, and I'll invite him to read it if he wants to. Supplementary questions are at the discretion of the Speaker. I have been very patient with the member. I will give her her last opportunity. Otherwise, we are moving to the next question. Jan Logie.
Supplementary. Will women feel encouraged to report domestic violence when they see her, the Minister of Justice, providing public defence in relation to a high-profile case of domestic violence?
Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr. Speaker, of course I haven't done that. What I have done is to say that the Prime Minister was quite right to receive the resignation of my colleague, Mr. Williamson, in the circumstances. I've also, at the same time...
Order. I apologise to the Minister. Point of order. Honourable Winston Peters.
On 3 occasions, you found that the original question was erroneous or outside of standing orders because of a reference to a certain case. Now you find the Minister of Justice is quite within the borders of the standing orders, having referred to the case that you ruled out from being referred to in the first place. Can we have some consistency here, please?
Well, I would have thought the Minister's answer was helpful to the House, but if the member's objecting to the answer, then I'll curtail the answer and we'll move. Are there further supplementaries? Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
If tackling domestic violence is a priority, why has the Ministry of Justice funding for family and domestic violence services dropped under her government from $8.7 million in 2010 to $7.3 million in 2013, despite an increase in family violence arrests last year?
Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, these days we take much more of a cross-government approach to the funding of domestic violence and sexual violence, and in fact I can tell the member that the Ministry of Social Development is also contributing to the funding, but also, in addition to that, another portfolio, accident compensation, has spent around, I think it is from memory, around $40 million a year on sensitive claims resulting from sexual violence.
Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Jan Logie.
I seek leave to table a report compiled by the Library showing a decrease in funding from the government from MSD, as well as the Ministry of Justice, as well as the It's Not OK campaign, totalling 35% decline.
It's been well described. On the basis not freely available to members, I will put the lever sought to table this Library report on a funding trend. Is there any objection to it being tabled? There is none. It can be tabled. Supplementary question, Jan Logie.
How can women feel comfortable reporting domestic violence when ministers have slashed funding for family violence and used their power to help a man charged with abuse simply because he's wealthy?
Again, we're right back in the same position we were earlier. I'll invite the member. Order. I'll invite the member to re-ask a question. I suggest if she just keeps it to the first part, it will be in order. Point of order, Dr Russel Norman.
Mr Speaker, the Minister herself introduced the Mr Williamson case. That's what the Minister did. It's now on the record. We now have a right to respond to her answers.
And a member sitting not too far from the member took objection to the Minister raising that, and on that basis I curtailed the answer. Now, we can move on very quickly. I've been exceedingly patient with the member. I'll ask her if she wants to ask one more or further supplementaries, but she does it according to standing orders. Jan Logie.
Make up. Supplementary. How can women feel comfortable reporting domestic violence when ministers have slashed funding for support and prevention and treatment services and lost their way in terms of providing political leadership on the importance of a consistent response to domestic violence?
Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, I reject the allegations, second part of that member's questions, and I can say to that member is that this government is deeply committed to bringing an end to domestic and sexual violence, and in fact that member well knows that that many people in this House will well know that there are people in this House whose close family members have been killed as a result of domestic violence.
Question number 8, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, this question